All right. Good morning, everybody. Call this meeting to order. This is the sixth meeting for the task force for reviewing the connectivity and technology needs of precision agriculture in the United States. And want to welcome the task force members today who are with us virtually, and also welcome everybody who's watching this meeting live on fcc.gov/live. Before we get started, I will do a quick roll call. And so I will start with that. Teddy Bekele from Lando Lakes.
Present.
Thank you. Catherine Moyer, Teddy, Chair. Catherine Moyer, Vice Chair, Pioneer Communications.
I'm here, Jesse.
Hi, Catherine. Dr. from South Dakota State University.
Present.
Seth Arndorfer from the Dakota Carrier Network.
Present.
The Honorable Dale Artho from Deaf Smith County, Texas. Thank you. Andy Bader from Fifth Estate Growers, LLC.
Good morning. Present.
Peter Brent, New Vision Farms.
I'm here.
Anthony Dillard, Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma.
I'm here. Present.
David Goldman, SpaceX.
I'm here. Thank you.
Michael Gomes, Topcon Agriculture.
I'm here.
Daniel Leibfried, John Deere.
Present.
Mike McCormick from the Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation.
I'm here.
Jeff Pettit, representing the National Association of Tower Erectors.
Present.
Steve Vale from Nine Star Connect.
Present.
And is Chris Chin on from Missouri Department of Agriculture? If not, we'll check that Chris will join later. And finally, so those are the task force members. And then from the Department of Agriculture, Chris McLean, ex officio member. I know Chris is going to join at some point today. So with that, we do have a quorum, and I will now hand the meeting over to the task force chair, Teddy Bekele. Teddy.
Thank you, Jesse. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our sixth meeting. Exciting to have everybody here together again. It is a virtual meeting, and hopefully this might be our last virtual meeting. Maybe. Fingers crossed. It'll be great to get back together and see each other face to face. But at the same time, I think this mode of working has also allowed us to be able to review documents in a more efficient manner, to synthesize a lot of the discussions. So it's been good from that perspective. And I know a lot of work has gone in behind the scenes. So I do want to thank all of you for the continued engagement, and for the chairs and the vice chairs of the working groups, trying to wrangle all the different folks together and bring them in and have the conversation. And there's a lot of quality recommendations, a lot of quality insights that have come through that I've seen through a lot of the work that's bubbled up at the moment. So excited to see all that is going. We still have quite a bit of work ahead of us, but I know we've made some good strides and good progress in the right direction. You know, the task for us now for the remainder of this year is really to bring a lot of this together. I know with the working group chairs and vice chairs, we've started to put together an executive summary that we'll review a little bit today, but then continue to work on that over the next couple of months. So when we get to our last meeting, we're able to really bring it all together, executive summary plus the 4 sections from the different working groups, with great material that we can submit to the FCC, to the USDA, as well as Congress. So now between now and then, we do have a couple of meetings set up. They won't be the length of this meeting today, maybe shorter meetings just to touch base and make sure that we're aligned. We discuss different points, and kind of move forward in that fashion. So that's really kind of what to expect. Again, thanks for everybody for for all the work up to this point. I think there's been some remarkable output that I've seen from the different teams. And excited about the discussion today, right? I expect it to be a fulsome discussion of a lot of different topics. I don't think anybody on the call is shy, so Please speak up when we don't agree with something. We can use the raise the hand feature that's in Teams. We'll call in that way. And we'll make sure that everybody's voice is heard in that fashion. Quickly, just a review of the agenda for the day. After the opening remarks, we'll turn it over to Michael Daniel, and he'll cover a little bit about the American Connection Corps. It's a program that Land O'Lakes had started, and it figured it would be something that'd be interesting for everybody to hear. We'll also have a presentation from the USDA on RISE. I believe Mark Brzezinski will be presenting that. At 10:50, we'll take a break for about 10 minutes. That's 10:50 Eastern. And then we'll dive into the review of the executive summary, kind of where we are. Again, today is not to go into the major details of the document, but just to present where we are and how it's coming together, and then get anybody's comments at that point. And then again, it's very much in draft mode, so we will continue to edit it from there. 12 p.m., we'll have an update from the FCC on the mapping. We had an update at our last meeting, and it would be good to have them back in and give us an update on the progress been done to date. And I'm excited to hear about that progress. We'll break for lunch at 12:30 Eastern and get back together at 1:15 p.m. And at that point, the rest of the meeting would really be dedicated to, if we haven't finished with the executive summary, we could do that. And then the updates from the working groups on progress, where we are, where do we expect to be here in the next couple of weeks. And that really should take us to the end of the meeting, and we should be able to adjourn no later than 2:30 p.m. This afternoon at Eastern. So again, look forward to the day. Look forward, please be engaged. Again, let's have. I know it's a little bit harder to do it with the virtual setting, but again, I think we have been doing it to this point, and we can continue making good progress in that fashion. So, with that, I'll end my remarks here. Catherine, I'll turn it over to you for just a few words.
Thanks, Teddy. And like Teddy, I'm looking forward to today as well, and would like to express my appreciation to the heavy lifting that all of the working groups have been doing. I know that there's been a lot of things that people aren't seeing that are going on in small group discussions, and that's really where the bulk of the work is taking place. And then also my appreciation to the chairs and vice chairs of those working groups getting together additionally for the executive summary work and going over that. And then also to FCC staff and USDA staff, because they're putting in some work as well. But I, like Teddy, look forward to this meeting and the future meeting, and then the report that we ultimately will issue at the end of the year, because I do think that there's some really great material in there. So with that, Teddy, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. So we'll move on to the first agenda item for today, and it's a presentation on the American Connection Corps. Michael Daniels, I believe you're on, and you will be sharing your screen, so I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Teddy, and good morning, everybody. Michael Daniels with Land O'Lakes, and really appreciate the invitation to be with you today. So I'm going to go ahead and be able to see that.
Yes, it's coming through.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. Okay, great. So I'm going to just run through a few slides here and give you all an update on what Land O'Lakes has been doing with the American Connection Project, and most recently with the American Connection Corps. So I work with Teddy at Land O'Lakes. I'm on the federal government relations team, and I've spent a lot of my time working on this. So nearly 3 years ago, when Beth Ford became our CEO, she quickly recognized that connecting many of the rural communities where we operate in nearly 10,000 communities across the country rely upon broadband internet, whether it's things that this task force is working on as it relates to precision agriculture, but also other basic needs for families, things like access to healthcare, education, job opportunities. Any of those types of things relied on being connected to high-speed internet. And so Beth made this a priority. And so we began working on something called the American Connection Project. So this goes back a couple of years. But if you fast forward to about March or so of last year, when COVID hit and everybody started working from home and kids started going to school from home, Beth immediately knew that we needed to pivot and accelerate this work and focus our efforts on the crisis at hand. And so what we began doing at that point in time was to organize a coalition of stakeholders a policy coalition focused on advocating for certain policy changes with the government, both at the federal and at the state level. You can see by the logo image on the right-hand side there, we have grown this coalition to now over 160 organizations that have joined together with us on this effort. What I think makes us a bit unique in this work is the diversity in our membership. And so we have folks from the rural and ag community like us, but also we have members from education and technology and healthcare and finance, all different sectors of the economy focused on this issue. We work on things like funding and coordination and mapping. A lot of these things, I'm sure, are very familiar to this group, things that all of you are working on, but this is an advocacy effort. What we have learned through the last year of working on this American Connection project from all of these partners that you see on the screen has been that in many cases, these communities may not be equipped, perhaps, to access some of these programs. And so if we think that there might be some infrastructure funding coming down the road here, it seems like momentum is building within the administration and with Congress towards a significant federal investment. We want to make sure that these communities are ready to go to access some of these dollars. And so, you know, in many cases, these communities might not have a full-time city council. Maybe it's a volunteer council, or maybe it's a part-time mayor, and they often might not even have a dedicated grant writer. And so the concern is that we want them to make sure that they are aware of these programs and that they're ready to go when it becomes available. And so what we have done is our recently launched effort called the American Connection Corps. The partners you see on the screen have joined together with us. This is an entirely privately funded effort by those partner organizations on the screen. We will be launching 50 fellows in 12 states. And this will be a 2-year paid fellowship where we will send out a boots on the ground team to these communities to work on these issues with a particular focus on digital connectivity. We are working with a group called Lead for America, an organization that's been around for several years and have already created a model of fellowship program that we are leveraging to launch this program. So okay. So these are the 12 states that we are launching in. You can see on the map there, again, it's a 2-year pilot initiative, and this is just the first cohort. So we're launching it right now. We just recently closed the application period, and we are currently reviewing the finalists for the positions and identifying the specific site locations within each of the states. So you may be wondering, what are these ACC fellows going to be doing? And so part of it certainly is digital access and inclusion. Every community will be different, but in certain cases, this could mean coordinating with local partners, accessing federal resources, state resources. In some other places, perhaps it's improving digital literacy, where maybe the infrastructure is there, but the community might not be adopting it or understanding how to use it effectively. They'll be accessing local leaders that are already in these communities, folks that have started businesses, nonprofits, other groups, to help them get settled in these places and to make sure that they are coordinating the projects with all the community leaders that are already there. And then finally, they'll be working with a diversity lens as well to make sure that they are effectively reaching communities that have long been perhaps underserved or under-resourced, and focusing on making sure that these communities are getting connected. The fellows will receive very good training through this program, and recently we learned very good news that they have also received AmeriCorps status. We've worked with AmeriCorps, and they will be getting the status affiliated with that program, so things like educational credits and certain tax benefits as well through the government. So just a quick update on some of the details around the program. As I mentioned, the application period recently closed on June 15th. We received over 446 applications for the 50 slots. So it was a very great pool of very highly qualified applicants. And we're in the process right now of rolling out the final determinations of where they will be and the certain site locations. We've worked with congressional delegations. We've spoken with members of Congress and senators to make sure that once they are on the ground in these places, we'll be able to connect them with these local offices and make sure that we're leveraging those resources as well. A little bit about the training that they're going to be receiving. The organizations that you see on the right-hand side of the screen are partnering with us on the training process. So there will be asynchronous learning. This is all done virtually, by the way. They're going to have live virtual trainings as well at the end of the month. They'll have monthly seminars throughout the program, and then they'll have access to one-on-one office hours with some of our experts as well. And so we're going through the process right now, and we have our first launch event scheduled for July 19th in the state of Kansas. We're finalizing some of the details around that event right now, but we expect to have some policymakers and other community leaders present at that event. So that is the quick summary. Our website there will provide you all sorts of information, both on the American Connection Project, but also specifically on this American Connection Core. And again, we think that this will be an opportunity to send these fellows to the communities to become the types of community leaders to help them access some of the government programs that exist at places like the FCC and USDA and others, so that they are fully equipped to access all of the programs that are available to them to improve connectivity and digital literacy in these communities. So I will go ahead and stop there. And if we have time, Teddy, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
Yep, we do have time. So if there's any questions from Michael, again, you can raise the hand. If that feature is hard to find, you can just speak up. Dr. Adeline?
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Chair. Daniel, Michael, so as you're making a presentation and a person that comes out of higher ed, you've got Internet 2, you got the Northern Tier, and they're all in their communities are doing what you say. And the power is in numbers. And I really think you need to cross-pollinate here because they're all working towards the similar goals. And I think it would strengthen what you're trying to do. And most of them are connected to extension in their states and the programs that they have there. At South Dakota State, we also have a program where we're supporting our Native American communities. And we have an action team that will go out and help those folks get connectivity. So I think there's a lot of possibilities for you. I applaud your strong team. I think you can make it stronger, including some other folks. A thought for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And those are great suggestions. Certainly the idea here is to leverage as many existing experts and resources that are out there. And I think we want to leave no door or no stone unturned, so to speak. So I appreciate that. And we'll certainly take that back to the team.
Andy Bader?
Thanks, Teddy. So this question is perhaps will be a surprise to some people. In Pennsylvania and in a number of states, we have a number of farmers and community members who choose not to use technology. They are Plain Sect, the Amish, and the Mennonite communities, perhaps others. And these are people that I work with pretty consistently, and I'm concerned about disenfranchising them as we go forward. And I say this will be perplexing for a comment from me because a little bit later I probably will mention all the benefits that we're going to accrue with all this digital technology. And so in your work, do you have like a subgroup, or how are we handling this very important section of primarily agriculture who are not likely to be on the internet?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And it's a great point because we know and we have heard this from many of our partners that these communities do exist where folks are just, for whatever the reason may be, either not aware of what they can do with these resources or just not interested. And so I think that perhaps part of what we can accomplish through this initial cohort of the fellowship program may be to better inform some of these folks. They may still choose not to utilize them, but to the extent that we can reach out to them and teach them and explain why it's important. I mean, I think over the last year, during COVID, certainly one thing we've all learned is for many of us at least, that having access to connectivity is not just a nice to have, it's a need to have. And so I think when it comes to things like telehealth and things like remote education, these are resources that people may not have in the past understood to be a necessity, but maybe more so now. So it's a great point. I think that it will be a challenge, certainly, but I think part of what they will seek to do, the fellows, will be to better educate some of these folks that may not be accessing or adopting.
Dr. Adeline has another comment or question.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that. If you could connect the Hutterite colonies that are in South Dakota, who are extremely technology oriented, with the Amish, that would be a group that could maybe talk to each other. But they're really hot on technology.
Any other question for Michael Daniels? Okay, Michael, I'm not seeing anything else. So again, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. Good update. And I think you got some good comments there as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, about 5 minutes, but we do have, I believe we do have our next speaker on, and that's Mark Brzezinski from the USDA, and it's a presentation on RISE, SBIR, and the RBCS. Mark, are you here with us?
Yes, I am. Hopefully you can.
Awesome.
Get
Good
my
morning. We
camera
can
off of
see
here.
you, so that's a good start. So thank you for being with us today, and I will turn it over to you to give us an update.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just for clarity, I'm actually going to speak to the RISE program and the AIC, the Ag Innovation Center. The SBIR, Small Business Investment, is a program through the NIFA. So I can maybe touch on it lightly, but I don't have much detail for that. So if we need follow-up, we'll be glad to connect you with the right appropriate staff for that. So, okay. But yeah, glad to join. I'm the Deputy Administrator here with Rural Business Cooperative Service. I see a couple of our partner RD staff and reps online or with the group. With such a small group, I thought I'd do is just maybe do some broad introductions of the program, kind of open up some discussions, and hope you have some question and discussion, more so than a presentation. But in the chat, I dropped links to 2 different fact sheets that might be helpful for you if you want to take a look as we're rolling through this. The first one is for the RISE program. RISE is the Rural Innovation Stronger Economy. This is a grant program that I'll spend most of my time focusing on. And I'll touch on the Ag Innovation Center grant program also. Both of these, I think, do have some opportunities kind of for your areas of interest, particularly around precision agriculture, though maybe indirectly in the sense of there are especially the Innovation Center program. While the name of it might sound very appropriate for it really has a slightly different purpose. But again, I'll talk through a little bit in the sense of what the links and opportunities might be. But first on the RISE program, the RISE is a new program. This was authorized through the 2018 Farm Bill. While the funding was authorized, it really wasn't funded until 2019. And we are now just standing out the program, and we have our first round of applications currently open. The first window for applications is currently open. So I can't speak to what the success has been or examples yet, because we're just starting to kind of connect with stakeholders and applicants, but looking forward to seeing the first round come in. The program itself is a grant that we will make to a regional partnership. So this is a pretty unique program in that most of our grants are very prescribed, and we have a single entity that's applying as the grantee. In this program, it could be a consortium of entities, a partnership that's representing a rural region. We provide them a grant. The grant amount will be between 500 and 2 million. So the minimum is 500,000, the maximum $2 million. The grant will support basically program activities for a 4-year period for that region. And the activities are really to support an industry or industry cluster that the region wants to focus on. And it's to ultimately the purpose of it is for either, depending on what that industry or industry sector is, it could be startup, maybe of a new industry for that region. It could be the opposite. Maybe it's an industry that needs some significant innovation, to revamp the industry, or it could be something in between, an industry sector that has been emerging, it's growing, but needs maybe additional boost kind of in that region. Ultimately, the purpose of it is to create new businesses and new jobs, higher paying jobs. The kind of the parameters around all of that are pretty open in the sense of what's a region. We leave that up to the partnership to define. It has to be a rural, consist of rural communities. In other words, because of our focus is with USDA rural development is rural community. So by our definition, rural means other than a city of a population of 50,000 or more. So urban areas are not included, but and then the region itself, as to the geographic, let's say the expanse or the size of it, is up to that region, that partnership, as to what they're kind of draw their borders or the boundaries for their region. We intend that the region be large enough really to capture a significant amount of the businesses and partners involved in that industry, kind of the key industry players, but small enough that they can focus on communities and community involvement. But that's kind of our guidelines for the region. The industries involved are again also wide open. We do expect that the industry have some link to the current communities. And that's where we think agriculture could be a significant play kind of in this program. But it could be other, it could be other assets that the communities are utilizing, could be natural resources, it could be existing industries, it could be playing off of, maybe there's, let's say, an expertise or an industry that focuses, let's say, on maybe some manufacturing, but they're going to bring in some advanced opportunities or some other innovation and further that industry into other sectors. So there could be other links to it. When we're talking about partners, we expect that the kind of the lead partner will be some type of a local or regional economic development entity. But partners in the region could include institutions of higher education, could be other nonprofits, public entities, private entities, private businesses, or electric co-ops. Really, it's kind of any and all, kind of players kind of in that region. And again, the grant itself is open. We are hosting webinars for potential applicants. The link I gave you is to a fact sheet, but that should link back to our program website. The program website has recordings of the webinars that we have, that we've held, or other events that we're holding. So if you do have partners or stakeholders you think that are interested in this, just let us know. We'd be glad to connect and kind of work forward. And maybe some examples that we've been hearing kind of on the ag side. We know in the ag sector, there's definitely interest in this program from some of your regions, especially around bringing technology to agriculture. What we foresee is maybe some opportunities of linking. It could be from a sense of advancing those technologies. Maybe it's manufacturing of those technologies and equipment. It could be applying, the technologies to agriculture. There could be examples of needing to, provide service to those types of technologies or advances forward. Or even in, ag production, ag processing of products, involving technologies also could be, something incorporated into this. We think it's critical that the partnership be pretty broad, including some of the technical expertise, institutions of higher education, maybe things like advanced manufacturing entities or support. There could be other research labs, maybe through the Ag Research Service or through DOE and some of the energy labs involved in these. So again, pretty flexible and we see pretty broad opportunities for this program. So that's maybe a very quick shot of the RISE program. I can maybe stop with that and take a couple of questions if you have or any discussions on that. And then I can reflect on the Ag Innovation Center a little bit. It's a little different program, so I thought maybe separating the two maybe would be the way of approaching any conversation on it. Any questions or discussion?
I'm just looking to see if there's any hands raised. Any questions from Mark? Dr. Dale Artho has a question.
Yes, sir. My adjoining county, they don't have an economic development board. The only thing they have is the Chamber of Commerce or their county government. Would those entities be able to handle the grants for promotion of these programs?
Let me just click, make sure I get my right. Yeah, because we have kind of guidance for kind of two sets. It's the lead applicant and also for the kind of the partnership. The lead applicant needs to be, it could be a nonprofit entity, could be a public entity. So the chamber,
Okay.
as a nonprofit could qualify. A county government, could be an applicant or as a lead with it. But the only type of entity that could not be a lead applicant would be a private, for-profit entity.
Gotcha.
It could not be the
Okay.
lead applicant, but they could be partners in the state, in the part.
Well, there's some pretty rural areas out here, so
Absolutely.
don't have a lot of those. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the partnership doesn't necessarily have to be a county. It could be, adjoining counties, or it could be, parts of counties, depending on what their interests, what sector they're serving, who the partners are. So again, we're very flexible as to what that region looks like. It's really set by the partners and establishing the program.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Adeline has a question.
Yes, thank you. Will you fund pilot programs to test the proof of concept? And then the second question is, with the Rural Economic Development Corps, will you, working with them, let's say they want to reinvigorate an industry, is that a possibility as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Got the two questions. The latter first. Yeah. So as to what the industry sector. Again, we're very flexible as to what the region wants to focus on. Reinvigorating an existing industry is definitely something in purview of the program. Like I said, it could be it could be an industry that needs innovation and needs that boost. That definitely would be something that this program could support. Particularly if it's an industry that has have been successful in the region in the past, and there's some advantage there of maintaining that industry in the communities. That's definitely an opportunity. As to a pilot, the program really isn't set up for a pilot activity. What we envision though is again we have limited in funding. We have, I don't think I mentioned, we have 10 million total available, so we're not going to reach a large number of awards. We definitely foresee interest beyond what we're able to serve with actual awards. We're putting together a kind of an informal group of federal partners that will, that we think, depending on the types of industries that may also be able to assist. So what we want to do is, from those that we are unable to award, or maybe there are some regions simply that need some additional work before they're ready, to submit an application for a RISE program, is be able to link them with other federal partners. There could be other programs or other activities that we can support. So we're trying to put this together as to, not just the funding as a support for a region, but really develop this as a program that includes other resources, federal partners. So if a region is looking at trying to pilot an activity, we may still be able to help out by bringing resources, but it would be a little bit of an indirect approach.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Mark, I don't see any other questions, so can move on.
Okay, sure. And then, so the Ag Innovation Center program. This program is a program that was authorized also by Farm Bill, but it was started way back in 2008, I believe, was the first piece of it. It was funded, and then basically funds were rescinded and not funded for about, I think it was at least 10 years. So it was, quite a while that the program sat idle. But the last couple of years, through appropriations, we've been receiving some small amounts of funding for the program. This year we have, I think it's 7 million available in the program. The innovation centers, the purpose of the innovation center is to work with producers, ag producers or producer groups, for the purposes of developing agricultural products. So it's taking an ag commodity, an agricultural product, and manufacturing it, adding value to it. Most likely related to food, but not absolutely. It could be non-food related. Other bio-based products produced from agricultural products. But the focus of the program is to provide technical assistance for product development and for development of systems. Let's say if somebody needs a processing system, for their product, and to work with an institution to help through that. That's what the Innovation Center is to help with. This program is part of a suite of programs that we administer and the Agricultural Marketing Service administers around marketing programs. So it's the Local Agriculture Marketing Programs, LAMP is the acronym. So this is one of the programs going to be in that suite. And I say it that way in the sense of, so the programs are set up to be complementary, but not overlap each other. So where programs such as some of the AERS or Ag Marketing Service programs support the marketing side, this program supports the more product development and product development of processing systems. So to help through the technical assistance to manufacture, to produce products. And then we have also a value-added producer grant program that is a grant to similar basically to producers, but that is for the startup or expansion of an enterprise that produces value-added product. So if you put those three together, this program, the Ag Innovation Center program, provides grants to an innovation center. They provide technical resources, technical assistance, engineering, product development to an ag producer. Our value-added producer grant could provide working capital and other funds to help start up that operation or expand, the production. And the Ag Marketing Services provides programs for the marketing, of those products and services. So that's how those kind of fit together, kind of under that umbrella of programs. But again, the Ag Innovation Center program is really set up to fund literally centers, innovation centers that provide that technical assistance and other assistance to ag producers. It might be a kind of an indirect link, I think, to precision agriculture. Innovation centers under this program do not support the actual production of agriculture. It's taking the ag product and processing it into value-added products and on forward. Okay.
Dale, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, yes. Can you provide a link in the chat for that? You provided one for the other program,
Yeah.
for the LAMP program.
Yeah, actually, there are two links. I'm sorry, they look like they're all together, but if you at the lower part of that piece should be a link to the Innovation Center. Yeah, it ends with AICP. If you see that link, I can also
Yeah,
add it
I got it.
separately. Yeah,
I
you
got
got it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Now, both of these programs, the AIC and the RISE program, because they're relatively small and fairly new programs, we're administering these directly from our national office. We do have a rural development field office structure. So if you're familiar with, or if your stakeholders are familiar with our field office staff within rural development, they're helping us with connecting with stakeholders, providing assistance in applications. But under both of these programs, the applications will be submitted actually to our national office team and reviewed here. But if you need any resources or any assistance, feel free to reach out, or if you have a stakeholder that wants more information, they can reach out either to our field office structure, our rural development field offices, or directly to us. And I think our fact sheets do have connections or contact information for both opportunities there.
Other questions for Mark on this program? Okay, Mark, I'm not seeing any hands go up. Any other questions for Mark overall? Mark, I'm not seeing any other hands go up on any other question. Oh, then hang on one sec. No, that's not a question. Somebody trying to join the meeting. Okay, was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, just that, of course, within your rural development, the rural business cooperative service, we have a whole suite of programs. If you have a couple of minutes and you're eager to take a look at those, feel free to kind of search through the website a little bit. If you have any questions, any follow-up you would like, any additional information on program, just drop us a note. We'll be glad to touch base and provide either additional follow-up or address any questions that you might have. But I'm glad for the opportunity to connect today.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the time to come here and kind of share these programs with us. Very helpful, very insightful. And thank you for providing the links in the chat as well. I think that was super helpful as well. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Jesse, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just to reference those links, I'm going to get those links posted on the meeting webpage so that they'll be available to the public for those following on the live stream right now. I'll get those links posted on the meeting webpage.
Okay, awesome. Dale, I think you have your hand up again.
Yes, I was wondering if Jesse could provide Mark's email address to us if possible. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's available as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to a break. We're just a few minutes early, but so we'll take the extra minutes during the break. It's 10:46 a.m. Eastern. Let's get back together at 11 a.m. Couple good presentations for the first hour. Had a quick break here. So we go into the next portion of our agenda, and that's the review of the executive summary, as well as the, if we have time before the next presentation, maybe an update from one or two working groups. Just a little bit of background on the executive summary. I think most of you have seen it by now. There was an email that was sent out yesterday with the link to the document. That's the shared box folder. As well as I believe in the various working groups, you should have seen at least some draft versions of this executive summary. The executive summary really is a place where we bubble up all the various recommendations from the various working groups, put them together, if there's any overlap, sort of combined things, organize them, and you'll see that here in the document here in a second. That executive summary will serve as almost the top layer of the overall report that will be produced by this task force at the end of this year, which we will vote on. And then the body of the work will really be there'll be 4 major sections, and there'll be a section for each of the working groups. So from the executive summary, those recommendations, we'll find more details in from what's coming from the working group. So that's a little bit about how this is set up, and how we will proceed forward. So I appreciate everybody taking the time in the working groups to really talk through what are the major recommendations we want to put forward, and bringing those to the chairs and vice chairs, and then their efforts to be able to synthesize that and then make it available, and so that we are able to create this executive summary. The goal for the next couple of minutes here is not to go into details. It's not to approve this document. It's very much in draft state. It's more of an update for everyone on where we are. But at the same time, it's a good time if there are some things that are not clear, if there's comments. This is a good time to have that discussion as well. After I'll be taking notes, maybe clarifying some things if that's need be. And then we'll continue to work on this document, which will be available in that box folder with the link. So hopefully you have access to that. I did get a couple of emails from folks yesterday that weren't able to access it. If that's the situation, Jesse and Jesse primarily should be able to help rectify that. But I do feel really good about where we are at the moment and how this is coming together. So that's pretty exciting. So with that, is there any initial comments or questions before I share the document and do a little bit of a deeper dive? Okay. Not seeing any questions or comments or any hands up. Catherine, I might ask you, once I share my screen, I might not be able to see who puts their hand up as we go through the section. So just please take a look at the participants and interrupt me if that comes up, or if others, if you want to speak up but can't find the button, speak up as well. That's not a big deal. So
Will
all
do,
right.
Teddy.
Thank you. Okay. So sharing the screen, sharing the document. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so it's the document is just shy of 5 pages. It's the whole intention is not for it to be very long, easily consumable. Quick glance, be able to look at what this task force was able to put together over the last 2 years, and quickly kind of it's almost an introduction to the overall body of work that's going to be coming forth in the latter part. So the document starts out with an introduction, and the first paragraph is really just more of, what's this task force, came together after the 2018 Farm Bill, things like that. The second paragraph gets into the 4 working groups and how that was organized, and the names for each of the working groups. And then we get into the third paragraph here, and that's really more in the why we need broadband in rural communities, how it affects precision agriculture, why do growers, farmers, ranchers, producers need this, and not only just for their productivity, but also in their communities. So it talks a little bit about that. And then obviously it's to we get into the fourth paragraph about a little bit about the digital divide, why it's there, and why even through the pandemic, this has been exacerbated and something that needs to be rectified. In this area, we will include some comments both from the FCC and the USDA, but just waiting on as this document gets a little bit more finalized, we'll get probably better quotes there that fit in. And it may not exactly go in this section, it may be the section and some others, but just having that as a placeholder, because it's important to have comments from the agencies here as well. And then the goal is, the way it worked was all the working groups sort of bubbled up the various recommendations. I think there was 14 or so that came through. And then working with the chairs and vice chairs of the various working groups, categorize those recommendations into 6 sections or 6 categories. Let's say 6 categories, probably a better way to say it. And then the categories, you can see them here in blue. And again, the document you saw yesterday maybe didn't have all the highlights and the colors and all that. Just added those today, this morning, to make it easier for review here during the session. But the 6 sections or 6 categories are improve federal broadband maps and consistently validate user experience. That'll be the first one we'll go through. The second one is increase incentives to build out robust infrastructure. Third one is enhance the high-speed standards to meet the technology needs in agriculture. 4 is to improve collaboration between federal agencies and remove regulatory impediments. And 5, increase digital access to education and training for individuals engaged in farming. And then there's a 6th section, which is more additional considerations. And, whereas the first 5 were more around connectivity, the 6th one still very, very much important, but considerations around cybersecurity and considerations around interoperability standards, and something that needs to be looked at. So those seem to be the way this came together. And then so these are kind of the 6 main categories that we will be submitting. And then each category, obviously, and you see each one highlighted in this yellow, getting into the details of each recommendation. So that's the first part of the document with the introduction and how this is getting laid out. Any questions or comments from anyone on this specific portion?
Dr. Adeline has his hand up, Teddy.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Adeline.
Teddy, something I was thinking about as I read through this again last night was, who's the audience? In the introduction, who's the audience? And I thought, if the audience is the USDA and the FCC, the commissioners and the Secretary of Ag, maybe what we ought to do in this introduction is talk about, from the working group perspective, we talked to 400 subject matter specialists. We spent 72,000 million hours reviewing material. The breadth of the material was this, to show the substance of where these recommendations came from. And certainly we have the content that backs it up, but some, for a better word, statistics. If that is the audience, if the audience is the public, and it seems like it's written in that public voice, then maybe that's not as important. So I was struggling a little bit with, who's this for, and do we create different executive summaries maybe, depending on. But I think if it was for strictly the FCC commissioners and the Secretary of Ag, showing the breadth of the working group and who we all talk to could be valuable.
Now that's a great point, and actually in the conclusion, struggle with that as well a little bit, right? As we're looking at it, because it's who's a reader at the moment, and but I think irrespective of whether the public or the agencies, I think the depth and breadth of work that went into this is still worth noting in here, right? Because I mean, it validates a little bit about all the effort and work that's gone into it. So that's a good comment. That's maybe something to include, and maybe do it in such a way where it's not specific to an audience, but broad enough to where like it could be applicable to everyone.
Thank you.
And Michael Gomes has a question or has his hand raised.
Yeah, to Dr. Adeline's point, you could do it there at the bottom half of paragraph 2. Each of the working groups has done extensive research and developed recommendations as the result of, and you have the total number of speakers and or some estimate of hours or something to speak to the depth of it. That's all.
Perfect. That's good suggestion. Okay. All right, let's keep moving. Okay, then these I'll go a little bit more in depth and maybe even read them out just so that you can see what's here. So the first one is around improving federal broadband maps and consistently validating user experience. So we recommend that FCC and USDA begin working immediately using data sets with the greatest breadth and preeminent industry authority and derive public-facing FCC broadband maps available. Broadband availability maps that reflect and confirm the unserved and underserved areas on agricultural lands based on the current broadband standard for fixed and mobile internet service to facilitate precision agriculture practices and adoption. 1B is we recommend that the most recent map for agriculture producers be hosted on the ARS website to include base layers of the NASS cropland data and the USGS data on rangeland and 3D elevation program data. 1C is with respect to broadband data collection, we recommend a uniform set of practices and validation process to be developed by the FCC, including crowdsourced data validation and on-the-ground testing mechanisms to verify quality of service against broadband provider claims. Furthermore, we recommend that the USDA and Extension Service be used to facilitate measurement in this process. Finally, the broadband fabric must include agricultural structures to which broadband is or would be deployed in addition to the home location and the shop or office. And then 1D is we recommend that broadband availability and quality data be independently verifiable using methods consistent across the country. Within this process of verification, the needs of the Native community should be assessed and met with culturally appropriate and locally accepted approach to gathering accurate data. So predominantly, a lot of these recommendations came out of the mapping group, but there were a couple others that were included into this one as well. Any questions or comments on this?
Yeah, Teddy, I had one. Mike
Yep.
Holmes, just that 1C at the end of it, that for the home location, the shop, office, or mobile equipment, recognizing that mobile equipment is also a user of broadband.
Okay.
You know, shop, comma, office, or mobile equipment, something like that. You know what I mean? Just recognizing that it's both mobile equipment as well as permanent infrastructure, because FCC always thinks only as permanent infrastructure, and increasingly it's about mobile equipment. That's all.
Yep, I totally get what you're saying now. Yeah, it's not static. There's things that are going to be moving on the land. Okay, hearing nothing else, we're going to move on to the next one. Increase incentives to build out a robust infrastructure. So, and there's two recommendations here, or two sub-recommendations. While incentives and subsidies for connectivity deployment continue to be considered, we recommend that these incentives and subsidies be substantially increased to drive deployment of connectivity with an overarching goal of deploying future-proof networks and relying upon various means, terrestrial, non-terrestrial, fixed mobile platforms as they may be appropriate, and to include other elements to enable precision agriculture deployment in the areas of edge computing, private 5G-like infrastructures, and precision agriculture application development. These incentives should be deployed and administered at the most local level possible to ensure that they are efficiently and effectively utilized, and localized accountability of deployment can be monitored and enforced. 2B says the FCC should work with the USDA and other relevant agencies to create incentives for specific types of infrastructure build-out that will support precision agriculture and networks and operations, including connectivity to rural agricultural land headquarter facilities, expansion of middle mile infrastructure, and deployment of local last acre network facilities for use of precision agricultural systems and devices. Questions or comments on this one? Okay. Third recommendation or third category is enhance the high-speed standards to meet the technology needs in agriculture. So there's a couple of recommendations. This is one of the ones that was merged with a few of them together, but still kept the language pretty much the same way it came from the working group. Given the increasing data flowing to and from agricultural operations because of current and future precision agriculture offerings, as well as the need to deploy technologies that have an element of future proofing, we recommend that a broadband definition, both fixed and wireless, be enhanced to higher levels on both download and upload speeds. The FCC's current speed benchmark of 25 megabits per second download, 3 megabits per second upload for advanced telecommunications capability is not only low in nature to drive innovation and utilization of precision agriculture, but the upload benchmark speed does not account for the vast amounts of data needed to be transferred from the field or farm to the cloud for storage, analysis, and insight generation. Data networks, the key facilitator for precision agriculture, are operating to gather, calculate, and report intelligence from within agricultural production. These offers fiscal efficiency, superior environmental practice, and responsible resource allocation, leading to higher yields of safe, wholesome, and sustainable food, fiber, fauna, and fuel products. The suggestion is not to drive a rigid, symmetrical standard, but rather to raise the standards on both ends significantly and recognize the uplink capacity is not inferior to the downlink needs. This approach should follow the recognition in the Communications Act that universal services are an evolving level of services. Implementation and subsidized investment of on-farm networks and supporting communities and ecosystems is critical to precision agriculture adoption, as well as the availability of high quality and digitally dependent jobs. So that's a little bit of a longer one, but it seemed that it captured the spirit and intent of the recommendations we were making. And then 2B goes, the FCC should identify, implement, and or strengthen policies to facilitate use of low, mid, and high band spectrum for precision agriculture applications, including policies that facilitate access to licensed spectrum in rural areas where the spectrum is underutilized, policies that remove technical impediments to rural agricultural use cases, auction policies that create incentives for bidders to deploy broadband infrastructure in a useful manner. Example given, policies that require bidders to show the long-term sustainability and scalability of their proposed networks, and technical policies that improve the performance of rural wireless networks. Any questions or comments on the third category of recommendations?
Teddy, Dan has his hand up.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Teddy. The only comment that I would make is out of the connectivity demand, both current and future working group, I anticipate that we will actually make a recommendation relative to future standards in this space before the final report is done. So I just wanted to make sure that that was noted in the record.
Yes, thank you, Dan. And good. That's a good point you bring up. By no means is again, this is final, and I do recognize that the working groups are still talking and still doing investigation, still doing some research and formulating some additional recommendations. So the 6 categories we mentioned here, they may stay 6. There may be more. Some other things could change. So that's still open until the working groups come back and say, okay, we are done with our work. We're done with our recommendations. So good point, Dan. I know the connectivity demands working group, we will have an additional recommendation and maybe some of the other ones as well. So this is why it's very much in draft, and we'll continue to bring those in and either put those recommendations under one of these categories or create a category if that's more pertinent. Okay. Moving on to category 4, improve collaboration between federal agencies and remove regulatory impediments. The FCC should work with other federal agencies to adopt and implement the common set of performance targets and standards that reflect the specific needs of precision agriculture, such as build-out requirements, example given connection with spectrum auctions, based on geographic covered areas that compromise croplands or ranchlands versus covered population. Multiple performance targets tailored for specific precision ag use cases and reflecting quality metrics such as speed, latency, jitter, and packet loss. Service availability metrics reflecting location and time-based elements that can be used in industry standard propagation models. And with respect to cybersecurity guidelines, we have to modify that last part, going from one page to the other. Okay. USDA, NASS, FSA, RMA, and NRCS and other agencies should align their existing and individual file management system to have the capability to receive electronic data layers that are commonly created through the normal course of farm operations. This improvement of use and incentives for federal reporting and compliance agencies will encourage the adoption of precision agriculture and modernize this task force set out to the very systems this task force set out to accomplish. Or C, the FCC and other stakeholders should identify and eliminate regulatory impediments to the use of novel business models to support infrastructure and broadband deployment, the ability of parties to obtain support from multiple funding sources for the same deployment, regulations pertaining to broadband build-out in tribal lands. And 4D, the FCC should work with other stakeholders to prepare playbooks to provide appropriate guidance to relevant stakeholders, such as a playbook for the creation and operation of rural community-based nonprofit solutions, a playbook for Bureau of Indian Affairs program staff to facilitate build-out on tribal lands.
And Andy Bader has his hand up.
Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you, Teddy. With respect to the amount of data that we're going to be able to collect in the future in agriculture, I do have a significant concern, which I think I've raised before, and if not an activity that this particular task force might take on, perhaps it could be something that a future task force could work on, and that is the issue with privacy, data privacy. We have a significant dilemma in that we're going to be able to collect huge amounts of data that would facilitate phenomics research, things like environmental goal ascertainment for carbon capture, crop statistics, disease detection, a whole gamut of things that all of this data could be analyzed to determine trends on. And yet we do not have a good way of assuring independent growers, independent farmers, independent ranchers that their data will not be released to the public. There is not a mechanism that I'm aware of to make data anonymous, or there are no rules. And this is this is actually, I would say, just a soapbox. This is almost a society problem right now, where we release a lot of data to the search engines, Googles, whatnot of the world. And I'm fearful that unless we set up a framework to determine when data should be available publicly and when it should not be available publicly, or how it should be made anonymous or not anonymous, that we're going to have a little bit of a Wild West situation.
Yeah, that's a good comment, and it is a big topic to tackle. I don't know that this task force can tackle that, but that said, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't put forward that this needs to be looked at. So Andy, as we look at it, I think either in the other considerations, either with cybersecurity or its own separate bullet, we could recommend that this be investigated even further, and maybe some standards need to be determined as a result of it. So we could do it that way, but certainly I think it'd be good if it was mentioned somewhere in the body of work from the working groups as well.
And Michael Gomes has his hand up.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. Hey, Teddy. So we've touched on this in adoption a little bit, in the fact that the perceptions of adoption and the perceptions of preservation of the individual right help people have confidence to adopt. And so we've touched on this to a certain extent, and I'll let Mike comment. Mike McCormick, the leader of that working group, talk a little bit about that if he chooses. And that's something that we believe that will further come out of some of our work and as our working group.
And Dr. Adelaide.
Well, I was just going to say that I would believe that, so certainly the USDA collects a lot of data now, and they've already worked on dealing with the release of information. I agree it's a concern, but I think there's mechanisms and they need to maybe be enhanced because the amount of data that will be collected and the fact that you will have a better coverage, or you may have a better coverage. I think they're going to have to sort out, there's going to be data going down the pipe that is tangential to the actual data. So you may be sending yield data, which is private to that person, but where that data came out of a field may not be. So you're gonna have to do a little work on understanding the metadata as well as the data. But I think there's mechanisms, and they certainly can be enhanced. I don't disagree with that. They always, because the flow is just gonna be huge, and we're not gonna be used to that.
Good comments. Anything else before we move on to number 5? Okay. Number 5, this originally was under key considerations, but there's a recommendation to pull this out a little bit higher. Increase digital access to education and training for individuals engaged in farming. With the demand for skilled workers expected to increase with the adoption of precision agriculture, career technical education, apprenticeship programs, community colleges, extension and land grant universities provide an avenue to rapidly fill this demand while providing hands-on training for a skilled workforce. Increasing access to distance learning, allowing rural citizens to satisfy post-secondary education and college-level degrees, more specifically allowing individuals engaged in farming to stay active in operations while achieving their educational goals should be a priority. We recommend state, local, and federal agencies increase funding for STEM and digital vocational programs at the K through 12 and community college level, specifically focused on technology, cybersecurity, and manufacturing careers in agriculture. Questions or comments on this one? Okay, and then we have the other 2 key considerations. Again, these were very much important. So it's just that they are a little bit more outside of the sphere of the task force. But that said, there's still something we want to recommend. And even the comment on the privacy, this is where I'd see it. We could add like a 6C or something like that, where we could include something there to say this needs to be looked at or investigated further. But the ones we have here are one around cybersecurity, the other one around interoperability. 6A goes, agriculture is an essential industry and is subject to cyber vulnerabilities, equipment, data layers, and supply chain to accelerate precision agriculture adoption, and most importantly, as a means of national security, federal cybersecurity policy should recognize agriculture as critical and essential infrastructure, and malicious acts should be treated accordingly. We recommend that priority be placed on developing precision agriculture cybersecurity specialists by the USDA, Department of Homeland Security, and President Biden's American Jobs Plan. And then 6B on the interoperability, as the world looks to agriculture for climate solutions and consumer interest in how, when, and where their bio-based product is grown, it is imperative a standard for interoperability is established. One of the key incentives to adopt precision agriculture technologies is efficiency of resource use: land, seed, livestock, chemical, machinery, labor, management, and natural resources. and improved interoperability directly impacts the quality of such decisions. Traceability through a supply chain requires interoperability, so verified data moves effortlessly as products change hands, processes occur, and services are performed. Increased interoperability will directly result in increased precision agriculture adoption, high-quality jobs, and consumer confidence. Any questions or comments on these two key considerations?
And Teddy, before you move on, it doesn't look like there's anybody wanting to comment on 6, but Administrator McLean put in the chat a question about 5, specifically at the very end of that paragraph about whether it's intended to be manufacturing careers in agriculture or manufacturing careers and agriculture. And I don't know the answer to that because I don't know the genesis of which working group provided this.
So this one came from the adoption of jobs.
I believe it was manufacturing careers and well, it could be either, but the idea that because what it was speaking to was the downstream effect, the upstream downstream effect of the role.
Okay. So we'll make sure we get that clarification on that one. Just note it down. Okay. Good catch there. Okay. Any other any questions or comments on 6A or 6B? Okay, not hearing none. Not hearing any. The conclusion, this is a very simple paragraph, just kind of summarizes a little bit and a little bit of a call to action to the reader. Same challenge that Dr. Adeline handled earlier, who's the reader? But this said, this is still very much draft mode. I think once the earlier part of the executive summary comes together, we'll continue to work on this part and strengthen the language, as well as make sure that it's comprehensive of the overall conclusion of the not only the executive summary, but the work that the overall task force and the working groups are engaged in. So for the moment, I'll call this more of a placeholder with some reminders of the key highlights and key wording we want to hit there. So we'll read through it, but not sure if anybody had a specific comment on this one that you needed to make at this moment. Okay. All right, so that's essentially the draft executive summary that's in place right now. Again, there's a lot of work has gone in the working groups, putting together the key recommendations and then summarizing them. So I would say this was the easier part of putting this together, but it does have it's an easier way to talk about all the work that's gone in over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now. And hopefully a good reflection of some of the key recommendations we want to make to the agencies, Congress, as well as the public. Again, very draft mode. It will be in that boxed shared folder as new recommendations come in. We'll figure out how to incorporate them into this document. Continue to working on the language on the introduction, as well as the conclusion. But I appreciate everybody's effort in getting us to the spot, and I think being here in July is super helpful because all we can do from here till October, November is strengthen this as we go forward. Any last questions or comments before we move on from the executive summary?
Teddy, I was wondering, now is it time to say to the working groups, if you choose and you want to discuss with the various communities that you interact with, is start to and begin to get some feedback on this certainly draft document.
Yeah, great comment there. The executive summaries, yeah, please feel, I think most of the working groups have seen that. And you've seen it in the working groups, but socialize beyond that. As the document, overall document from the working groups comes back together and we create sort of here's the draft full report. It's a good time to start socializing, right? Because the whole idea is to not wait till we have final approval, but as we start to socialize, you may even get some additional comments, some questions from folks and things that we probably need to clarify some more. So one of the reasons for getting a jump start to getting the executive summary done a little so earlier in the year, as well as the rest of the document, was that we would have time to socialize with others and make sure that we capture appropriate comments. Yeah, so good reminder there, Dr. Adeline. Andy?
Thank you, Teddy. So from an agricultural perspective, we live in a world marketplace where we compete with other nations for market share. We, for the most part, export, in some cases, import products from other markets. And so this is something that occurred to me when we got to the end of the read this morning, is where do we stand with our work in this body and our recommendations versus our world competitors? What's happening elsewhere in the world? And we've bumped into this a little bit during our work group activities. We learned of countries that in some cases seem to be a little bit more advanced than we were in certain sectors of agricultural research. So I am very interested in making sure that we stay abreast of, I would say, the competition. And I think this is a way also of coming up with a rationale for funding and for staffing and all of the things to facilitate making all of this happen.
Good question, and actually could be a great topic for a review with the kind of one of our sessions here. But I don't know if there's anybody from the USDA that could make a comment on that, or is there someone we could invite for a speaking engagement at some point? Okay. Well, that's a great comment. What we'll do is maybe we'll take that Andy as it's a topic that we could probably hear from others, and maybe even the working groups can listen on that and see if there's any additional things we need to pull out from that. But that would be a really good topic from a standpoint of getting out. Chris McLean, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah,
so
no, I was going to say, just let me know what you'd like, and I'll try to track down the right person for you at USDA. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think we have a couple of meetings just to review progress on kind of where we are with our recommendation. So in one of those, maybe we can dedicate 25 minutes or so, 25 to 30 minutes for someone to come in and give us an update on where's the rest of the world, with consideration on precision agriculture and progress they're making.
Yeah. So we'll just accumulate like a wish list, and I'll go out and try to find the right people for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Other comments? All right. Well, thank you for all the comments and engagement there and kind of working through this. Again, I think we made very good progress. So we're in a good track. So before the next session comes up, I believe we have about 20 minutes or so. So maybe we could do is get an update from one of the working groups on kind of where we are and how things are going. So Dr. Adeline, is it okay if we start with the mapping working group?
Yeah, it certainly is. Let me share my screen quick. And this will be short, but what we've been working on, can you see that?
Not yet.
Not yet, sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna worry about sharing that. I'll just give you a heads up. So what we've been working on is, based on the last task force meeting, cleaning up our recommendations and getting those, answering the questions that were put to us and refining our ideas related to that. And then the next thing we did is collect information on, do we need other recommendations? And basically, we came up with two, and let me read them to you, and they were in the report. We recommend that the Federal Communications Commission and the Department of Ag begin working immediately with the most authoritative data currently available and derive public-facing FCC broadband availability maps that reflect and confirm the unserved and underserved based on current broadband standards for fixed and mobile internet service on agricultural lands to facilitate precision agricultural practices and adoption. We had quite a bit of discussion on this, and we really think that right at the current, without collecting any more data, right at the current time, you could easily generate, and that's in dialogue with many different groups, what we called in our working group a negative space map. So where we know in what field there's no connectivity. I mean, there's not. And so we think that's really important to kind of set the space with what we know is not out there. And I think we thought that could be done right away. Okay, and that was a new recommendation from our group to work on that, because everybody's been talking about the new maps, and it might take a year, it might take 2 years. We think this can be done immediately. Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Then the second thing that we talked about, or second recommendation, we recommend that the most recent map for agricultural producers be hosted on the Agricultural Research Service website to include the base layers of the National Agricultural Service Statistics Service, or NAS, cropland data layer, and the USGS rangeland data, as well as the 3D elevation program, or 3D data. And here's the discussion that we had on this. There certainly was sentiment about, hey, we ought to maybe just have maps on one location. But I said, if we're talking about precision agriculture, and certainly the audience for this, for knowing where connectivity is and what kind of connectivity is available, is agriculturalists. And where do they get their information? Well, they're not necessarily going to the FCC site to see things on agriculture. So we really thought it important that we put it where that audience is. And I understand some concerns about, okay, it would be nice to have one location. But in this case, if we really truly get communication, all it is a data flow from the USDA to the FCC, and the FCC back to the USDA to create these maps. So we thought that was really important, because we need producers involved in this process, and they need to be knowledgeable. And providing information, this is one way to make that happen. So those were two new recommendations, Teddy, that we had come forward with.
Okay, Perfect, and I think we'll make sure we can, so they have a place, so we have a good place to put them in, and it'll be good to highlight those. How's the overall body of work coming along?
Very well. The draft, I believe, is up in the folder, and we continue to get small edits from individuals, and we'll continue to work on that. But overall, it's really shaped up nice, and I think when that's the case, when the document flows, that you can see, how it grows with the information we've collected. So it's really is, I think, overall, the working group would say that we're in really good shape.
Okay, and so you said there's still kind of minor edits going on, which I think that's going to be ongoing for a while. But the main sort of body of content is there at the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Michael Gomes has a question or comment.
Yeah, Dr. Adeline, good stuff. I guess the thing that I always struggle with, because you guys got such a hard task, is the dynamic nature of how the usage is changing. For example, it may be one thing at 10 a.m. and it may be something at 3 or 4 p.m. when the school kids get out, particularly in a rural area, and they begin to text. And as well as, for example, in areas of permanent crops in February, before those are leafed out, it's pretty good. And then as the foliage gets thicker and thicker, it may be changing. And so what I wasn't sure was if you had some level or some element of a renewal, right? So that then the continual changing of that, or the recognition that service is in nature, based on its nature, dynamic, and how you would use static maps to illustrate elements of that dynamic demand. That I don't know if I'm articulating that very well, but
thanks, Michael. We did talk about that, and what we thought would be important is that when the maps were created, you need to state, here's the point in time, these were the criteria, this is where we got the data, so that people can understand what the snapshot was like. Because you're absolutely right, it's a snapshot in time. And so that it would be important to understand, what it was during that snapshot time. And that you'd have to continue forward with various snapshots. But it really initially sets the base. And so you would see that snapshot and it set the base for that time frame, and then it would progress moving forward. But you have a very valid point, and it certainly was a concern of our working group.
Other questions for Dr. Adeline? I don't see any hand. Oh, Andy Bader has a hand up.
So some of the data that we would like to have probably does exist in the repositories of large carriers, and that it is not publicly available to us. And this is perhaps a radical thought, but these are carriers who are regulated, they're federally licensed entities, and maybe a suggestion might be made at some point that as part of their charter going forward, that there be a little bit more of an open kimono attitude with regard to data from these entities who are serving the general public.
Yeah, Andy, we talked about that to some extent, and Seth worked on it, and we thought there might be a role of Congress or something to help facilitate that sharing of data.
I think the key is some are regulated and some service providers are not. And there's we talk about broadband as a utility, but yet there's a large incentive for competition within the industry. And so it really gets to be a battle there of, and I think the service providers, and I can only speak to the cooperative culture that we have in North Dakota, that we have cable companies and we have wireless ISPs. We have to share information in a way that the stakeholders can see what's available and who I can buy it from without, giving one service provider an uncompetitive position in the marketplace and making it really difficult when they have to share and their competitor may not be obligated to share. And so it's really a struggle from that perspective. But as Dr. Adeline mentioned, we did talk about it extensively, and we are confident that with the reporting obligations that, the 477 improvements that are going to be out there, that service providers, any wireless, fixed, mobile, any service provider can report their capabilities in a given serviceable address location level, that it won't create an environment where we're unfairly penalizing somebody for reporting.
Thanks, Seth. Other questions or comments? Okay, and I think Dr. Adeline, you did mention, and I think I saw it, that the document, there is a draft document on the Box site for the working group. So for those of you, if you have access there, and again, if you don't, let me know. But if you go under even in the executive summary there, you will find the draft report from the Mapping and Analyzing Connectivity on Agricultural Lands Working Group. Okay, I don't see any other hands up with any questions or comments. We have about 6 minutes before the next presentation. I don't want to shortchange any of the working groups with their updates. So how about we just take a 5-minute break, and then as soon as the folks that are going to be giving us an update on the FCC mapping update, and actually it's good timing after we kind of just talk through this working group. Once they're up, then we will turn it over to them for a quick update on kind of where we stand. So let's give it 5 minutes, and at 11:59 Eastern, right around noon, we'll get back together. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're ready for our next topic, and everybody's excited to hear a little bit of an update on where we are with this. We had an update at our previous meeting in March, but FCC is currently undergoing a lot of work to update the maps, and we got an update last time, but it'll be good to get an update from Kirk and Sean on this piece now. They'll give us a little bit of a background on the efforts and then current status. So with that, I will turn it over to Kirk and Sean for an update.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to kick things off. Sean Spivey, Senior Counsel on the Broadband Data Task Force. Maybe, Kirk, you can introduce yourself if you want to before I jump in on the background.
Sure. Kirk Berge, I'm the Chief of Staff of the Wireline Competition Bureau and work on data and mapping issues in that capacity.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us back to talk about broadband data collection and the work that the task force is doing. So just by way of background, the task force was created by Acting Chairwoman Rosa Wursel back in February to really serve as kind of a cross-agency effort to implement the requirements of the Broadband Data Act and the rules and processes that the commission adopted in its prior reports and orders on what was formerly known as the Digital Opportunity Data Collection, or DODC, or DOTC, depending on how you how you pronounce it. I've heard it all the different ways, but that we're now kind of referring to as the Broadband Data Collection, or BDC. And since that time, so that work basically, just as a brief recap or reminder, the chair of the task force, Jean Cadu, she often refers to the work that we're doing as kind of a three-legged stool. So the main lines of effort are first, developing systems and processes to take in better data. Secondly, to collect more granular data from the internet service providers. And then third, to have mechanisms to verify and challenge that data to improve the overall accuracy of the maps on an ongoing basis. So the systems and processes in particular, one system is the Broadband Serviceable Locations Fabric, which was required under the Act and that we adopted rules for. And as you all are aware, that's a set of locations throughout the United States where broadband service is expected to be deployed. So basically, we've done a lot of work since the last time we all spoke. In particular, a couple of updates. We issued a request for proposal for that Broadband Serviceable Locations Fabric. That went out, I believe, on June 1st, and responses to the RFP were due July 1st. Now, based on kind of the way government procurement efforts go, I and Kirk don't have a lot of information on who responded and the evaluation process. That's being done by a separate technical evaluation team and our procurement folks, who are kind of one step removed from the project, so that they can make an impartial decision on the ultimate vendor or vendors that will be selected for working with us on the fabric. But in terms of government procurement, I think we've moved at pretty quick speed to do both initially a request for information and a statement of objectives, which really helped us quickly turn around a robust and well thought out, I think, if we can say so ourselves, request for proposal for the fabric. The other piece of that first leg of the stool is the overall systems development. One of the first things that we did in the early part of this year, once we had funding from Congress, which came through at the end of the year through the Consolidated Appropriations Act, was we went out and hired a data architect and design firm to help us kind of think through the system flows and how all the various pieces of data that the commission is going to receive will interrelate to one another, and how that would be taken in through a new system to be built. So this broadband data collection isn't going to rely on the old Form 477 filing platform. We are going to build a new system from the ground up. And so the first thing we wanted to do was kind of map out how the data would come into us, how data would interrelate, whether it be the ISP data or the challenge process data, and when corrections would be made and new maps would be made available. So the data architect firm put together kind of system flows and a design architecture. And based on that work, we've made some real tangible progress in terms of moving forward with contracting to actually build the systems that will then intake that data. So we're really happy about the progress we're making there as well. In terms of the second leg of the stool, the actual input of the information that we receive from service providers, obviously some of that's going to depend on when those systems are developed and the fabric vendor develops the first cut of the fabric. But there are other things that we're working on in terms of implementing not only that, but also the third leg of the stool, the challenge process and the verification process as well. The agency is hard at work thinking about a lot of the issues that were delegated to the bureaus and offices in the prior reports and order, questions, around fabric implementation, as well as some of the more technical aspects and methodologies around the challenge process and the verification of the data. And so, we're trying to work through those issues in tandem while we do the government contracting work. Just briefly on a couple other lines of effort, in the meantime, we've done some things like stand up a a Share Your Broadband Experience portal, which is available at our broadband data collection website, which is fcc.gov/broadband data. There's a portal where consumers and other interested stakeholders can provide information and share their experiences about availability and quality of service for broadband. That portal has received over 12,000 submissions since it was created a few months ago. We also have been promoting the use of our FCC Speed Test App, which is an app that you can download in the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store, that allows you to test the quality of your broadband connection, in particular your mobile wireless broadband connection. In the prior report, in the third report in order, we said that that application will be used as part of our challenge process. So while that challenge process isn't ready to go currently, we are encouraging consumers and other stakeholders to download the app so that when we are ready to go, and the app will of course need to be updated to include the specific functionalities required to submit challenges, but at least consumers will have the app on their phone and they'll kind of be in the habit of using the app and familiar with the app, at least the initial version. So, we've been encouraging enhanced, robust use of our FCC Speed Test App as well. Finally, we've also been coordinating with a lot of federal, state, and local stakeholders that are interested in the work that we've been doing. Kirk can speak about that a little bit more, particularly on the federal side. But as you all are aware, there are a lot of states that are creating broadband offices and other kind of tactical teams to deal with the issue of broadband availability and deployment. And they have a lot of questions about what we're doing and how we can be complementary to one another and not duplicate efforts and kind of share best practices and what we've learned thus far in the development of our processes and procedures. And so we're doing a lot of outreach with those organizations to try and make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. There are a lot of other work streams going on the task force, but those are some of the major ones and some of the places where we've had some key developments. So I'll turn it over to Kirk to talk about a few more aspects, and then happy to open it up to questions if that'd be helpful.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that, as you may have seen on June 25th, the FCC, USDA, and NTIA entered into an agreement for coordination among the agencies in connection with their various broadband funding activities. It's pursuant to requirements in the Broadband Interagency Coordination Act, which was enacted along with the Consolidated Appropriations Act at the end of last year, which required that the agencies enter into an agreement for coordination, that they share information pursuant to that agreement, and that they consider the use of data in making their decisions about broadband funding as they proceed to implement their programs. The Act also requires that there be a report that the FCC seek comment on the arrangement and how effective it is and how it could be improved by June of next year. So at some point we'll be seeking that comment and are planning to have the report out by that time frame. I will say, I mean, we have worked with both USDA, RUS, and NTIA for many years on these issues. We have good relationships with those agencies and are in conversations with them now. It's still somewhat early in the process, but we look forward to a fruitful collaboration with them, as well as with other agencies in connection with other programs that have been stood up or are going to be stood up this year. There's a lot that came out of the CARES Act, and I think also Consolidated Appropriations Act that provides for funding in various forms from other agencies. And so we're keeping an eye on all of that and working with those other agencies to coordinate our efforts. So I think that's kind of where we are on that. You happy to take questions at this point, or?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that update. From the task force, if you have questions, just raise the hand up and I'll turn it over to you for the question. Dr. Adeline?
So thank you for the update. But a question I had, as you develop these systems, can you speak to the process for data security? That's certainly a concern of the task force and the various working groups. And I know it's important upfront to figure in data security instead of adding it on afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right that I think it's something we're being mindful of. Security by design kind of thing, making sure it's built on the front end. I can't get into the particulars, not being a system engineer designer myself, but it is. I believe in the. I don't want to get too far out in front of my skis, but I believe in the procurement documents there are provisions that that is evaluating security protocols and processes are part of the RFP evaluation process, I believe.
Thank you.
Sure.
As we wait for other questions, I had a quick one. As you think about the data coming in from the providers, is there a substantial change on their end as far as how they provide the data? Do you expect that as we go forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is a significant change from how it was being reported previously, both on the fixed and the mobile side. And Kirk can keep me honest on the fixed side, but at a high level, under the current 477 filing requirement, fixed broadband service providers report at a census block level. And essentially, if they deliver an end user connection to a location in the census block, they mark that census block as served. So that results in there being census or locations within a census block that may not be served by that ISP, yet our maps or our data would show that entire census block as being served by that ISP. And so what we're doing with the broadband data collection is this is going to a location level. So basically they will submit data either in the form of polygons or location lists, but either one have to be geocoded back to our broadband serviceable location fabric, which is kind of like the Rosetta Stone of the locations where broadband should be deployed. And so we will get a much more granular level of detail of where these ISPs are delivering service or could do what we call a standard broadband installation, which is basically they could provide service within 10 business days and at no special costs. On the mobile side, it's also different. Basically, mobile providers were able to they submitted shape files of where people should receive their services, and they did it on a technology basis. So they provide information on 3G and 4G service, but it was never really standardized. There were no standardized parameters for how they were creating these shape files. So you would have providers that may be making assumptions about, the level of signal strength that people would receive or how many users were on the network at any given time as part of their link budgets that they would use to create these propagation maps, these polygons. We adopted standardized parameters for 3G, 4G, and 5G service in the prior orders. So basically, everyone is singing from the same songbook, and the maps will really be apples to apples comparisons based on what we think are reasonable input parameters to show where consumers should receive the 4G LTE, 5G, and 3G service throughout the country.
Got it. Thank you. Catherine has a question.
Sure. Sean, going back to your reference to geocoded location granular data, can you share a little bit about some of the discussions around things like differentiating between farm homes, barns, and other out types of locations that sometimes in the past haven't been necessarily determined to be a separate location from the home or from the residence itself, and talk a little bit about some of the discussions you all are having around that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one unless Kirk, you wanna answer it. But, Okay. Yeah. So obviously that's very front of mind. That there are a series of issues that were delegated to OEA in consultation with the Wireline Bureau that need to be resolved around locations like, I'm sure for you all's purposes in particular, things like chicken coops and equipment sheds and that sort of thing out on farmhouses and those sorts of things. We know we need to resolve those issues. Part of it is going to depend on the vendor that is ultimately selected to provide the fabric. You know, we need to know kind of what their capabilities are in these aspects, and I think that those are things that, you know, that was part of the RFI process, really kind of doing some market research and learning about how they approach things like these issues and other things like mobile home parks and, you know, marinas and things. So part of it's knowing what their what the selected vendor's capabilities are, and then also kind of working collaboratively with them to get where we want to or need to go. So I think you know, I would say that I think we probably need to first work through the RFP process and select a vendor, and then we can move forward with making the decisions on some of those issues that were delegated to OEA and WCB. But we are very mindful that there's a lot of interest in getting those issues resolved, and we are thinking about, and we're having internal discussions even while this RFP process, you know, continues to work its way through with the evaluation team. Kirk, is there anything else that I may have missed or?
No, I think that captures it really well. I just will also mention that, you know, there is a challenge process for the fabric itself, and that will play a role going forward in determining on a, you know, very granular level what locations are and aren't, but aren't considered serviceable. But yeah, from a more general standpoint, I think it's exactly right.
Honorable Dale Artho.
I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for the efforts you've done. Out here, we get tired of the smoke and mirrors, guys. It's just, thanks for doing what you're doing. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see any other hands up, Sean. So as far as next steps, obviously the RFP, getting through the RFP and selecting a vendor is a key piece. Can you give us maybe just a high level timeline? Not detail. There's a lot we don't know, and how long the system design is going to take and all that. But just a kind of a high level timeline would be great.
Yeah. So we know there's a lot of interest, and we are working as hard and as quickly as possible to move at lightning speed. I think, you know, one thing that I can say is that we have said in the prior orders that we would give the internet service providers 6 months notice prior to them being mandated to provide the new collection, the new data. We have not issued that 6-month notice yet. But, you know, I think that will be a milestone that everyone will see, and will provide some real tangible guidance on when the collection should start up. But beyond that, you're right. I mean, these things are all interrelated, right? And so we kind of have to, you know, while we are trying to think about if there are pieces we could move sooner rather than later, they are kind of all tied together a little bit. So we are, you know, we're just trying to move as fast as we can in the procurement for the fabric and the build of the new system.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions for Sean or Kirk? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up. So Sean and Kirk, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today, giving us a really good update, and it's awesome to see the progress you've made even since the last time we talked back in March. So I think it is moving really, really fast, and you're already starting to talk about, you know, giving providers a notice. So that's really good to hear. That means we're making fast progress. So we'll probably have you on again just to kind of see the progress that's going on. But we do thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Okay, we are getting to the lunch break now. We're just a few minutes early, so we'll break here in the next minute or so, and then we'll get back together at 1:15 p.m. Eastern to resume discussions on the working groups, and then that will be really the last topic for the day. So see you back in about 49 minutes or so. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We will resume our meeting at the moment, and we have really one agenda item left before we go into the conclusion section, and that's just to get an update from the remaining 3 working groups. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the examining current and future connectivity demand for precision agriculture. Dan, I believe you're on and I can see you, so maybe you can give us an update of where the working group is today.
You bet. Thanks, Teddy. And as a reminder, everything that I'm talking about is since our last meeting in March. And if you remember from our last report that we submitted in October, one of the requests of the examining current and future connectivity demand to this task force was to conduct a survey. I'm happy to say that a small survey of telecom providers, producers, and ranchers and service providers was executed over the course of the March through now timeframe. I would say our response rate was less than desirable, even with the small numbers that we had. And the team is actively looking through those responses that we did receive to glean insights in order to refine our report for final submission this fall. Next steps, again, the team has already worked on looking at where we wanted to make refinements just structurally to our overall report, stronger emphasis on the digital divide and building a U.S. environment where it's more equitable for all to have digital access, a stronger eye towards the practices in sustainability as well as animal welfare. We thought were important to refine into our report, but from a more substantive portion, the elements that came out of the surveys and getting to a recommendation on a standard relative to upload and download are likely the key pieces that are remaining in our report. I would like to ask for clarification between now and the end of the meeting, just relative to what is the expectation on timing of final reports, just so I can sync up with the working group to ensure that we meet the demands of the full task force. But I suspect that that's an open topic for everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I think we'll cover that. There is a couple of interim dates that Jesse's holding between now and the final meeting. So we'll probably most likely make those the milestones, right, for some of the completion draft documents. So we'll cover that towards the latter part of this meeting. But yes. Jesse, you have your hand up with a comment, maybe?
Yeah, Teddy, I was gonna answer the question, but we're looking at November 10th as right now the final meeting for this initial term of the task force. And in our charging documents, we asked that the recommendations of the reports are circulated to the task force, the FCC, and the USDA 30 days in advance. So that would be 30 days in advance, which I believe would be October 11th, if we meet November 10th.
Excellent.
We
Thanks,
can
Jesse.
Yeah, we can confirm all that. So I would, work towards that.
I was actually pushing from my working group to be complete by September, just in case there are any iterative loops right there at the end as we kind of bring everything together or consolidate. September at the latest was my target, so it seems like we're well within the bounds.
Yeah. So Dan, with respect to that, it looks like there's maybe a couple more recommendations coming, kind of getting finalized from the group. I'm assuming, some of we submitted a document last year, so you're going to continue kind of to build on that. Do you feel the team is in good shape to be able to deliver around that September timeframe?
I do. And I don't know, and again, I think all working groups are in the same position, whether or not there'll be radically new recommendations, but there might be some refinement, and in particular, we'll be pushing to make a definitive recommendation, or at least a directional recommendation on up and download speed targets.
Okay. That makes sense. That's good. Other questions or comments for Dan? Okay, I don't see any.
Thank you.
It was a quick update. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next update from the next working group, and that is the encouraging adoption of precision agriculture and availability of high quality jobs on connected farms. Mike McCormick, I believe you're on and I can see you. I'll turn it over to you for an update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have really not a lot of refinements that we've done since the last time that we've reported. We have our key points in, and we may have a little more to add to it, but Julie Bichelle, our vice chair, has done a fantastic job of capturing the ideas of our subcommittee and getting them in a report early. So we're really happy of where we are. Our key points continue to be focused around sustainability and traceability, and expanding that into carbon markets, consumer demand, benchmarking USDA initiatives. Second point is around apprenticeships and how that relates to the American Jobs Plan. We're expanding that a little bit. We also have a key point of data privacy. We really feel like there may be a point or two that we want to expand on that as well. Fourth is interoperability, which I think we've got that buttoned down pretty close. The fifth point is cybersecurity, and we may expand and report our language around that to include the importance of data privacy, and probably the one that we've got the most work to do yet on, and that's the last thing we probably really need to get into. The key points is our working group charge on metrics and how we track the progress of broadband and deployment, and I think that's where we'll focus most of our attention on over the next month to get our report finalized. And then finally, we talked in our last meeting about some 5G and edge computing technologies strictly at the farm gate, at the farm level, and focusing on that. So that's where we are, Mr. Chairman, and I've got Mike Gomes and Dale Artho on here with me, and I'll let them give a update as well if they'd like. Mike.
I think Mike covered our 5 kind of key points pretty well, and we were in general, we're real happy, and we'd reviewed drafts of the documents that we had gone through today, and actually gotten a fair amount of spirited debate on those over 2 sessions. And so while we've been relatively quiet today, it's mostly because we're in a high degree of alignment today. And so that's where I would say that we're in really good shape. Dale, you got anything to add?
Nope, I agree. We're in good shape.
We'll take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, any questions from the group? I don't see any hands up in the meantime. So sounds like good progress, good alignment. Still some refinement of some recommendations that may bubble up into the executive summary. The body of work, do you feel confident that by that September timeframe we should have a pretty good version of that section?
We plan on having it before then, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, perfect. That'll be awesome. That's good. Sounds like really good progress, and I look forward to the updates as they come up, and we'll make sure to incorporate them. And you're right. I did see, Mike, to your point, the comments that came back, and I think most were incorporated in the executive summary. So we should be in good shape.
Absolutely, and we appreciate that. Right? I mean, that's what we have this dialogue going that's real positive, and so we just see it continuing to move forward for sure.
Awesome. Any other questions for this working group? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the update. Okay, and we'll move on to next working group, and it's the accelerating broadband deployment on unserved agricultural lands. Jeff, I see you're up, so I'll turn it over to you for an update there.
Thanks, Teddy. I just wanted to invite my fellow working group members, Steve and David and Anthony, to chime in and help me as they are well aware. I usually don't have a whole lot to say. Heather runs this working group, and she has done an excellent job of keeping us corralled and moving in the right direction. So, as you know, she had sent you, Teddy, and I think on up to Jesse earlier this week, an addendum with some information that we're going through and additional recommendations. And I guess once that's been gone over and ready to share with the full task force, I guess that'll be the next steps to try to see how that's included, correct?
Yep, that would be the next step.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And outside of that, we've met several times over the last few weeks to try to get to that point and get that wrapped up and presented to you guys. If that is accepted, then I think we're kindly sitting, waiting to see maybe what our next steps need to be at this point, and determining what we need to do and when we need to meet. So.
Okay, great. Any questions for Jeff and other participants of that working group from the rest of the team?
And Steve, Anthony, any of you guys that would like to add a little more polished input to it, please feel free to do so if y'all got something there. So.
And Jeff, I mean, as far as progress, I know that you made pretty good progress there. Again, same question that we had for the others. By that September timeframe, do you feel like we'll have a pretty good handle on the report for this group, and that we can start to incorporate into a main document?
I see no reason why not.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions or hands raised. So with that, maybe Jesse, if I could ask you, I know you kind of mentioned it, touched on it briefly earlier as far as dates, the November 10th, but even I know we have some dates held in between that. We can give us a heads up on what those dates are, and I can give a little bit more color on what to expect for those dates.
Sure. So right now we have on hold August 19th. And then we have on hold September, we're just going over this, was it September 14th? And then we have on hold October 14th. And what we have on hold is just being able to bring the full task force together. So we reserve the commission meeting room, so we have the resources to make the meetings public. Because we've been taking advantage of meeting virtually, we thought to continue that and kind of use this as a way to check in on the progress and a way to get the full task force together. Even though these are just 2-day meetings, and generally we think of our task force meetings as being more of a full day, we're just going to plan to meet for a couple hours if that's what is needed. So they would start at 3 p.m. And go to 5 p.m. And I believe everyone should have a hold on their scheduler. So we can go ahead and confirm that. Of course, because these are federal advisory committees, we would go ahead and get them published, the notice in the Federal Register. But at the same time, I will confirm that these meetings will happen and that we're good to go with these dates. I will do that as soon as I can. So look forward to having those opportunities to bring everyone together. And then, Teddy, I think we would look to you and Catherine and the leadership in terms of kind of what would be expected at those dates. I know that I just said, we're looking 30 days before the November 10th meeting. would be October 11th. So that would be before that October 14th. But I think there would still be a way to kind of discuss that, at least have that initial kind of circulation. Of course, the 30 days is just 30 days in advance is kind of the deadline to get those reports sent around. If they're ready and good to go, you can get those sent around even sooner. And then we can, have that, have debate as needed at the full task force meetings. And, we would look at internally for technical edits, kind of the process we've been doing.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. The reason for having those holds for those 2 hours is we do need the full task force in case we need to get into conversation and have quorum that way. Otherwise, we get in a situation where we can't have discussions about the details of the topic. So, Catherine, did you have a question or comment? I saw your hand up for a second.
No, Jesse answered it with the October 11th circulation date versus having a meeting on the 14th. And I just wanted to clarify that was if we wanted before or after the circulation date. So,
yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah, and Teddy, if some of those dates don't work or we want to change, we can look to do that. But again, it would just need coordination with making sure that we can get the quote room reserved. And I know people have been, kind of hoping that we could meet in person at that November 10th meeting, but at this point, I just don't have any more information. We are still all teleworking at the FCC. So I'll update people as soon as I have any information there, whether that will even be a possibility to meet in person on that last date.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jesse. And to that point, as far as the dates, the 4 dates or the 3 dates that was mentioned, August 19th, September 14th, October 14th, and then obviously the final meeting on November 10th. Not necessarily that we're going to have those meetings. We'll just have to see how progress goes. But for certain, we'll have that meeting on August 19th. And to the conversation earlier, I think that's a good deadline for us to start at least check in to see what the progress is, both on the executive summary and the output from the working groups. So that meeting, again, will be very similar to this one as far as updates. Where are we? What's the progress being made? And hopefully maybe we even have some draft documents ready, not necessarily to be ready by then, but at least making sure that we're getting closer. I would say the September 14th will be the date in which we would want to have the documents ready, or at least draft, and in some sort of a shared folder. That will give us the ability, and then we can, at that meeting, each group can go through and talk about the content of the document itself. So it's everybody's present, and we can capture notes and comments and all those kind of fun things. Then the idea would be to start putting all of it together, right? So there's the whole fun part of formats and Word documents, bullets, numbering, all those kind of things that have to go into it, footnotes and everything else. So hopefully if all the content is ready and available by that September 14th date, we can start assembling the document. And the goal is by that October, we'll have the document, sort of a draft one document ready with everything in it by that October 10th, so we can do the circulation. We might quickly check in on October 14th to make sure we're all there. So that may be the meeting that we may not need, depending on where we are. We'll circulate it, and then obviously we'll get together on November 10th. And by then, we should have seen that document many, many times, and it'll just be a final vote. Should be a fairly straightforward. Shouldn't have any big controversy by the time we get there, because we would have seen it many, many times. So that's a little bit of the layout, and really the reason why we have those dates on hold. 2-hour meetings. Again, we've met with the working group chairs and vice chairs. If the total time is not needed, we don't have to use it, but at least it's there, and we can take advantage of it. So it's really more of a milestone on the calendar as we go forward. So that's really kind of the game plan here for the next couple of months, and the game plan for what we have left to do. Like I said at the beginning of this meeting, I do believe we're in a really good spot. Working groups have done a tremendous amount of work in discussions, exploration, research, investigation, and then even bringing all that information together. really resulting then at the end in elevating some of the key recommendations that we want to make to the agencies and to Congress. So I'm pretty excited about all the progress that's been made, and it's testament to all of your hard work and the leadership you put together and you set forth in these working groups. So that's the kind of the meat of what we have for today. Any questions, comments, concerns on anything, whether it's dates, timeline, agenda, content? Andy, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
A question on the executive summary. So it was shared publicly today on screen, and it would be available in that fashion. Is it going to be also publicly posted, this initial draft? And the reason I ask is that I periodically get questions about the task force, but I'm only allowed to discuss what's publicly available. So I'm questioning, how publicly available is that document right now?
That is a good question. So I know, it's available to to this task force, to the working groups, right? That's been shared. As far as to the public, maybe Jesse, something we can get back on. But do you have any initial thoughts?
Yeah, so as you know, this meeting is being streamed on the FCC's website, and tomorrow, maybe even this afternoon, but likely tomorrow, the meeting will then be posted on the event page and on the task force website. So, Teddy, you were showing the document while we were going through it. So, in that sense, the document is public and people can look at it that way, or will be able to look at it that way by going back and replaying the meeting. But yeah, as you said, it's not, this is not something that's officially adopted by the task force. So let me take that back. Knowing that it will be posted, and you've clearly said that before showing it, that I can go back and see if there's any way to make that clear and post that on the website or on the web page, and note that it's kind of a work in progress. But again, there might be some, given that it's going to be posted via the video, I will double check, but yeah, I think it's a possibility.
Okay. Thanks, Jesse. And so Andy, and obviously you have the link to the box folder. Any updates that will be made to that document, you'll always be able to get to that, to what the latest looks like. To Jesse's point, if we do publish it officially, we may have some wording that says draft behind the scenes or some watermark, something like that, that will sit there to make sure it's clear that it's not the final yet, but a good working document. Other questions, Dr. Adeline?
Technical one. So I talked about 2 new recommendations. Does the task force have to vote on those like we did the other recommendations, or can it wait till the final document?
I think it can wait till the final document.
Okay.
We'll get while we have, and if we do need to vote sooner, we have these dates, right? And the reason for putting together the dates with the full task force is that if there is something that needs to be debated or voted on, we have the ability to do so. Okay. But unless we see any big controversy or something comes up, hopefully we would know that before that. So that the final vote should be more kind of hopefully a formality. But
yeah, and again, recommendations and reports that are coming up for vote at the task force meetings, we've asked that they get circulated around 30 days in advance, so then people have a chance to take a look at those. And because we wouldn't have done that here, we wouldn't put that up for vote in this meeting. We just we would go through that process that we've set out before bringing anything to a kind of formal vote or adoption by the task force.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike McCormick. Can you get those timelines out to us in an email, or get Jesse to do that so we don't have any confusions on writing dates down, please, sir?
Yep, we'll do that. Okay, got that. Any other comments? Okay. Waited my magic 7 seconds, didn't see anything there. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for their participation and engagement today. I think we had some good material presented to us. I think we're making, again, tremendous progress to kind of getting to a final deliverable. So that's exciting to see. And everybody has been involved, whether it's in the working groups or this task force. So that's exciting. I do want to thank Jesse Jackman for kind of the efforts in getting us to this spot, and as well as the rest of the folks at FCC, but also Chris McLean and the rest of the team at USDA for supporting us throughout this process. I think your engagement has been good, and you've been providing comments and feedback to us along the way, even on the draft documents, which has really helped continue to shape this in the right direction and making sure we get input early enough. So that's very much appreciated. Task force members, thank you so much again for all the work, and a couple more months to get to the finish line, but we're in really good shape. So unless there's any other last comments, and I'll wait a couple seconds for that, but we'll bring this meeting to a close. Jesse, I know you probably have 1 or 2 comments to make.
Yeah. I wanted to thank all the task force members and the working group members as well for all the hard work that they've been doing. I know there's a lot going on in those working group sessions to really debate the recommendations, and we've seen a lot of that. So, as we move forward to the recommendations, really looking forward to seeing those and kind of getting into the specifics in terms of getting detailed recommendations and any help with the implementation. As we've tried to do today and throughout, is also get the task force members and the working group members information about, what the FCC is doing and what USDA is doing as well in terms of, what could affect the recommendations. And that's why, we give you update on the mapping efforts as well. And so we look to do that. And if there's anything else that you see we're doing that you have questions on, always reach out to us, and we can facilitate a meeting to kind of help get everybody up to speed on what's going on, and that can help tailor the recommendations as well. So those are the couple things that I just wanted to say. Again, thank everybody for all the time and the hard work that you're putting into this, and looking forward to what's going to come of this. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jesse. Any last remarks? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we will talk on August 19th. Take care.